And now, it's time for the Lakeside Drive F1 podcast. Here are your hosts and my supreme leaders, James Baldwin, Campy, and Freya Brolsma.
Well, hello and good morning, and welcome to this episode of Lakeside Drive. I'm coming to you from crispy, sun-filled East Gippsland morning, and my friend and yours, Miss Freya Brolsma, coming to you all the way from the beautiful Cayman Islands. How are you, my friend?
I'm very well, thank you. It is also sunny here. Not so crisp. As any number of Formula One drivers can now tell you, apparently Alex Albon was here during the week. He literally went to my gym and was on the bike on the treadmill next to me. I was not on the treadmill, which I've spent the last year on, but you know, that's fine. And then we had George Russell here the week before that. So it looks like it's the place to be.
The place to be. I'm sure you're making headlines, all the right headlines anyway. The Amsterdam incident that's become infamous.
Yeah.
What actually happened there? That is news.
So
We're
he was
here
there,
to cover the news.
Yeah, you're right. We are talking about news, and that was news. He was there on the weekend for King's Day, which is kind of their national celebration day, on a boat with Martin Garrix, I believe, and their party crew. And I believe someone got a little bit too excited with a glass at some point, and it ended up on his nose. That did just so happen to be right when I was there on King's Day as well, but I have attested, no involvement. You can believe that if you wish.
Good to hear. Well, there's lots going on in the F1 paddock at the moment, and there's lots to discuss today. We will get to the Imola GP, but it is a preview episode, so we're going to go through some news. Let's jump right into it. Freya, the F1 Academy and Abbi Pulling. She's done some great things thus far this year, and I suggest IKEA as an ex-sponsor for Abbi, because she's going to need all those cabinets to store all the silverware she's won and about to win. So talk us through that one.
Absolutely.
I know this is very close to your heart too.
Oh, absolutely. Look, it's just one of those things. I think when we see the platform, we see the racing opportunities. Women perform, and it's just so wonderful. And I know there's heaps of our listeners who are following F1 Academy and are loving watching that too. It's great racing. It's so fantastic to see such, these young girls, young women, out there doing amazing things. And Abbi Pulling, as you said, has made history. She is the first female to win British F4, and that was straight after her win in Miami with F1 Academy. So big shout out to Abbi. It's just incredible. And if anybody tries to downplay that achievement, you can, unless you've also won F4, go away. I don't want to hear about it. This is an incredible achievement. And look, it's one of those things people are saying, can girls be faster than boys in the same machinery? Abbi says yes. So big shout out to Abbi and to F1 Academy. They're also getting their own Netflix series next year. So I think we're going to see that audience just grow again and again.
Well, that's excellent news, and congrats, Abbi. We wish you all the best on if you can win that F4 championship. That is a big finger to the establishment of Formula racing in Europe. It's never been done before, so it's exciting.
He's also the fastest Alpine driver right now, so
better than Gasly and Ocon. Well, they're French, they give up. So very good. Well, arguably the biggest news of the year, and probably bigger than any driver lineup that we will see in this coming present silly season, is the news of Adrian Newey moving away from Red Bull. Now, Freya, we had a chat about this a couple of weeks, and we had some corrupted audio, so that episode didn't go out. And I speculated that, what does this guy have to prove? I think his legacy is cemented. He's been with Red Bull for 24 years. He's won the 8 championships there. He's got form with Williams and McLaren previously in F1. And what is it more that he has to achieve and accomplish in this sport? I said absolutely nothing. I think he'll stay at Red Bull, but geez, with with hindsight, I got that completely wrong. If I had have held on to it for another week, then
that was the podcast curse, though, right? As soon as we recorded, the
Yeah.
news came out that he was leaving, and you had confirmed that you didn't think he was going to go anywhere, and then that's exactly what happened. But it is an interesting one. I think, as you said, at this point in his career, it's not that he has anything left to prove per se. I think he has shown his genius, and there's a legacy there with what he's achieved with the success of Red Bull. I think now you kind of go, well, what is left with your career? And I think you just start looking for a new challenge, which is potentially not necessarily about win after win after win and, you know, those immediate podium results that you're likely to get, as much as looking to a team that is really building something and kind of saying, do I want to be part of that new challenge, that new creative challenge, new leadership challenge, all of those things? Because I think, as much as, of course, everybody loves success and the ongoing success that they have had if you've been involved with it, there is probably a point, as somebody with a creative genius mind like his, which is saying, okay, well, I've invented this thing, I've designed this thing, what will I do next? Because I've kind of nailed this set of regulations. What else can I do? And the new set of regs would bring that. And so I don't think it's as much about what he has to prove as much as what's currently missing, which might be that new creative exploration in a new challenging environment, doing something different and changing it up completely. Which does, of course, leave the question as to, will he just retire or will he go somewhere else? And I think there's two obvious answers to that, with different rationale, both of which would make total sense to me. One is with Aston Martin. Obviously, he's very familiar with the power unit manufacturer who they will be bringing in 2026. So that would make a lot of sense. And you can imagine that Aston will be putting a lot of money into an offer to try and woo him. But the other option potentially would be Ferrari, where we have learned this week that Ferrari have signed two Mercedes head honchos, which we'll talk about in a minute, and have obviously brought across Lewis Hamilton as well. So you could very easily look at what Fred is building there and going, you're building something and I want to be part of it. And of course, everyone knows that red is something that everybody wants to wear and be a part of at some point in their racing career. So it's anyone's guess what's next. But what do you think?
Well, the aura around Ferrari and the dangled carrot in front of everybody that's ever been in front of that organisation is, if you get this team back on top to where it should be, post the Michael Schumacher days, we saw it briefly with Kimi, he's probably still the most loved previous Ferrari driver, even this, 17, 18 years after his world championship, that he'll be loved and respected for all time. So if somebody can step into an organisation and win multiple championships in multiple years, like Mercedes and Red Bull have done since 2010, then that carrot is a big carrot to be a part of and to be forever loved by the Italian fans and the Tifosi is, geez, it's something to, that's why Lewis has gone there. Lewis is, he's won championships, pole positions, races, he's got the best on-track record from anyone that we've ever seen, but he doesn't feel like he's done until he's won in red, which is clearly a big pull. I started enjoying this sport long after Ferrari dominance, and I've never seen them put a car on track that's won those championships. Whilst we had the Melbourne Grand Prix every year, and I was a part of that, just living here and watching the race every year, that Schumacher Ferrari dominance was huge. You put that name and the organisation, something like Michael Jordan and the Bulls back in the early 90s.
Yep.
And everybody knew who they were, and this was a time before social media where we had access to information. It was just everywhere you went, everyone knew that name. So, look, it's interesting. I'm not sure Newey will want to... I can see Newey's not confirmed to any team yet, so I can see him finishing out this year with Red Bull, designing next year's car, and then stepping away. There's going to be a garden leave period of 12 months, so he's not realistically going to be at Ferrari until they're on track in 2026, and then by the time he gets a hold of the car and starts designing things, it's going to be 2027. But geez, that is going to be a special car if he designs it and Lewis Hamilton's behind the wheel. He may just get that elusive 8th World Championship that he's going for. But geez, I'm not sure. I can see it going either way. We can see in the last sort of 5 or 6 years that he's done things outside of F1 just to keep his passion.
Yeah.
He put his concentration into other things. He built the Valkyrie with Aston Martin, so he's got some ties there too. But he's not going anywhere except Ferrari if he goes somewhere. So I'm not yet ready to make a call on that. But
we'll see.
Interesting. I can't see him going Aston Martin again. But you brought up the fact that Ferrari just got a couple of technical heads. So they signed, is it Loic Serra and Jerome D'Ambrosio from Mercedes. Serra was head of the vehicle dynamics from 2013 to 2018, then performance director. And he'll become head of the chassis performance engineering at Ferrari. D'Ambrosio was Mercedes driver development director, became deputy team principal to Fred Vasseur and head of Ferrari driver academy. So, look, people moving around in this sport is not a new thing, but and Red Bull came out this week and said we've taken 220 people from the Mercedes powertrain team. So it suggests to me that once a team's on top, the hardest thing to do is sustain the personnel in the organisation to keep that high performance up. And Ferrari is making some big moves for her.
Yeah, I think that's it. There's a couple of things in there in what you've said. Like, one is that, yes, people do move around. I think because we've had a couple of people kind of really come out and show their commitment to very specific organisations, in that Lando has talked about, he wants to win his first driver championship with McLaren. We've had various team principals which have been there for so long in connection with different teams. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton with Mercedes. I think, you think back to when that news came out in January, it was such a shock to the system. People could not believe that he had left Mercedes. And so, yes, people move around, but yes, there's also, with some of these big figures, there is that kind of quite, I suppose that sense of loyalty or connection to specific teams. So that is an interesting component to me, but the more interesting part is just so clearly Fred's very active influence. And I think what's interesting with this with Ferrari is that organisational change is hard, let alone hard to do quickly. So for him to be recruiting the way he is from a driver perspective, from a personnel perspective, he is obviously working very hard at that. What I love is that whilst he's doing that, he's also having a lot of fun off track. He's still bringing his full personality to each race weekend. We're seeing the cheeky side of Fred Vasseur still, even though he's making massive moves behind the scenes. And I just think the whole thing feels really authentic in how he wants to run this organisation, which is really a cool thing to observe. There's a lot of assumptions there, I'm aware, in terms of what we see from the outside and what's actually going on. But from what we do see, that's certainly how it feels as a spectator. But as you said, it has been interesting with Mercedes and other teams as well, saying that they have got Red Bull personnel also wanting to leave at every single level, which I think is really fascinating. So I think from yes, this is going to be a big driver market year, as we already know, as we've already seen. But it's also going to be a big year when it comes to personnel between teams. I think there's going to be a fair bit of unrest at Red Bull, especially after Newey's departure. And I think the kind of dumbfounding situation, I suppose, in certain way that Mercedes have found themselves in with their performance. We'll see some of those people looking to go elsewhere, case in point here. And then meanwhile, same time, you've got Ferrari looking like a really exciting opportunity, which is just so different to where they were, 12 months ago. So exciting things ahead.
Yeah. Culture in organisations is massive, and I'm not sure that behind closed doors we've seen the perfect culture come out within Red Bull. You do things to get to the top at some stage at times, and maybe they'd come back to bite them in the ass. But this is a sport of change too. We've seen some dominant periods from Red Bull for 4 years and Mercedes for 8, going back to Red Bull for 4. It's time for, and it will happen around change of regulations. Red Bull won't be the top of the pecking order anymore, and there's another team that will come up and potentially win for that 4 to 6 years, depending on how long those regs do it. And I hope it doesn't go that one. I want to see drivers win, 1 or 2 races a year, and the championship super tight. It's about the races you don't win.
Probably go and watch IndyCar
then. Yeah, I know. Jeez, it's good racing, isn't it? Cracking race on the weekend. So
great.
Yeah, it's great. Anyway, in better news, our much-loved driver over here, Hulk. The Hulk to Sauber. So I want to talk about his move to Sauber and how awesome it is. But what does this mean for VB and Guan Yu Zhou? As that they transition from what we know as Kick Sauber to Audi coming into the sport 2026.
Yeah, look, you can't really talk about Hülkenberg's move without talking about the rest of them, right? Because I think, again, not that was a massive shock to the system in the same way that Lewis was, but I still don't think it was quite expected. I think it was more likely that people would expect the first announcement with Audi to be potentially Valtteri, maybe even Carlos Sainz, because currently that is looking like the most logical opening for him, although based on some other news in terms of Toto not talking about wanting Antonelli to get his license before he's 18, maybe Sainz to Mercedes is actually a potential option there. But I think, people were looking at that as one of the more likely scenarios. So for Hülkenberg to come out and be the first one committed to them was fairly surprising, certainly to me. I think from just think about Hulk for a second, I'm just loving the trajectory of his career. It's so interesting to me, and it's really refreshing, and it's exciting for other drivers because, obviously he had that time away and then he came back, but it was kind of like, you're filling a gap in one of the lower teams. And now all of a sudden you've got this whole second wind to your career. And I just think that's really encouraging, both to other drivers who might be stepping away right now or have a step away in the future. It kind of just shows that anything can happen. And I think that's a really encouraging and positive story. And I also think he's a fantastic person to have around the sport, generally speaking. I've chatted to a few people who have worked with him actually at various points in times, and they were like, look, this guy is like a mechanic by trade, really, in a lot of ways. And, he's always the one wanting to really understand how the car works. He'll often come in with, oily hands or greasy hands because he's been doing his own work, and he's genuinely a car lover and is very much kind of, very I suppose, deep connection to motorsport. And so I think in that way, it's really he's a fantastic person to have around the grid, have on and around the grid. Campyism there.
Freya's done a Campy there.
Yeah, exactly. But as for the others, I think for VB, it throws a big question mark up, because I think when it comes to team dynamics, often you are, not always, but a lot of the time, you're looking for somebody who brings that experience and all the value that comes with somebody who's been around for a while, as well as having somebody who is perhaps a bit younger, earlier in their career, bringing along not just new fans, but that sense of kind of the future of the team. And so when you commit somebody who kind of fills that experience void, perhaps you're looking for one of the younger drivers to fill the other one. Again, obviously that's not a guaranteed duo, but it is certainly kind of what we see as a bit of a trend in many of the teams, and especially, as they're establishing themselves. And so I think perhaps we'd hoped that VB might fill that experience role, and maybe that's not going to be the case, which obviously does call into question where VB goes. Do they take 2 more experienced drivers, or does he go to Williams full circle and do something like that? For me, Zhou is one of those drivers that he just doesn't stand out as a give me the X factor driver. And he's done enough to show that I think he really has earned his place in the sport for sure. And he still is fairly early on in his career, but you think about him in his second year, you think about Oscar in his second year, chalk and cheese. different machinery. Granted,
Yep.
I know there's many variables here, but he's just not a driver I get excited about going, oh, let's see what, he can do here in this overtake. Whereas others, you have that, that reaction to. So if it was me, I would potentially be looking for a younger driver to take that second place. I don't know if it would be Zhou though.
It's funny, this sport, if you look at it through history, every driver that's driving in the top teams now, if you look at their first and second years in F1, not only have they performed on track in their first year and consistently beaten teammates, but they've had one or two really big results, which has garnered massive amounts of headlines, which not only for Formula One, but the fans around the world and all the people that engage in it, those results put them on the radar. And you think about Lewis Hamilton when he went to McLaren at 18 or whatever it was, and came second in the championship. Probably should have won it if it wasn't for something that happened in the last race. And then the year after, he goes and wins the championship because Takuma Sato pitted on the last lap in Brazil. You look at Seb Vettel in the Toro Rosso. You look at, Gasly won in a Toro Rosso too. Who else? I think some of the drives that Leclerc had against in that Sauber against Marcus Ericsson, whilst they were fairly competitive, in people's minds, Leclerc was the better driver because he got these top fives and he consistently found himself in Q1, and they garner those headlines, which creates the buzz about them. And you're right, Zhou is a driver that hasn't done that. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for him to in that organisation because, people have a very level perception of the reality of what this car is capable of, what the team can do.
Yep.
And as for VB, unfortunately for VB, and I'm his biggest fan, if you look at the trajectory historically of drivers that have driven in top teams, won races, but been a number 2 driver, when they step away from that top team, they sort of slowly drop back down the order. They get the 3 or 4 years in the sport at one of those teams, but then eventually it dies out. Now, Valtteri, I think he's probably a better driver than Hulk. And 2 years ago, I would have been, you could have pushed me over with a feather if you'd said Hulk's not only going to get a drive and a contract in this sport, but then to get a second drive with a new manufacturer coming in.
Yeah.
I'm stoked for Hulk too, because he's a kid that did everything at the junior levels and was hailed as a future world champion. Now, the reality is his career's panned out in a way, but he's been in a car that's never deserved to be in the top 10, let alone get podiums and race wins. He's always been in that 11th through to 16th position with the cars there. Now, he's had times where he's had opportunities to get those results. Think back to 2018 in the German Grand Prix where it was rained out. I think we had 3 safety cars and he binned it while in the lead. Frustrating, but these things happen on they's racetracks.
Yeah.
And I'm genuinely stoked to have Hulk around. I think he's great for the sport. He'll obviously be great for the organisation. And
they've got the German connection as well. It makes total sense. Imagine if you had Hulk with Audi and then we get a German Grand Prix. It would be absolutely incredible. It's absolutely fantastic. And I completely agree with you. Like, I do think VB is the better driver. But also what this shows, you go, maybe VB does take a year or 2 out. He focuses on his cycling and his gin and his wine, and he's got such a fulfilling life outside of Formula One. And then maybe in a couple of years, someone says, hey, we need a safe set of hands. Can you come back and race with this? And he's off and he's ready to go. So that's what I mean when I say that Hulk's career trajectory is kind of exciting for other people because it shows what's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited for Hulk, and I'm stoked. Unfortunately, when people move, someone else misses out, but that is just the reality. All right, last thing before we get into the Imola preview is we've got Logan Sargent's replacement. James Vale says no change.
Yeah. Look,
What do you think?
the thing Yeah, look, the thing is here, so apparently what has happened is that the FIA has been asked for Kimi Antonelli to get a license before he turns 18. And apparently that request came from Williams. Now, I haven't read every article, everything else about this, but it is one of those curious questions. If Williams is asking if that is a possibility, right? It does suggest that there is going to be an open seat at Williams and that he wants that to be filled by a Mercedes driver on loan, potentially from Mercedes, if they're not ready to have him step into the top team, which I think Mercedes are going to hold tight until Max confirms that he is going to fulfill his contract, and then we'll find out what the next move is. And that could be a Carlos Sainz, it could be Antonelli, but this kind of suggests that perhaps they think he's not ready yet, and that and Wolf has also said that he wants him to focus on his F2 campaign and also his F1 testing with them. So he hasn't actually been very supportive of this request. So I think we can kind of set that to one side, and maybe it says something about Mercedes, maybe it doesn't, but I think it does say something about Williams and what their intent is for 2025. I don't think it'll happen any sooner than that, because it causes too much disruption to the team, and it's actually quite a big risk to bring in somebody new mid-season, let alone somebody who, like a complete rookie. I don't think that would be worth it for them. But come 2025, that certainly is, I think, pretty indicative of their intentions for what their lineup is looking like. Of course, Albon is the other question. Not so much that they would ask him to leave, but he might have a better offer. So we'll see what happens there. But this is starting to give us a few clues.
Does Gasly go to Mercedes before Kimi Antonelli does?
Ooh, you would love to see that, wouldn't you? Gasly back in it. Look, maybe. I think there's a couple of drivers there we don't talk about as frequently as others, and I would be like, I can't remember everyone's contract expiration dates for those guys, but I think it's a really interesting point. If you've got a couple of, again, safe hands for potentially, even it'll only be a year. Like, they're not going to give anyone a multi-year contract at Mercedes, especially not before the new regulations come up. It would be someone like Mercedes to say to an Ocon or Gasly, come and do this for a year. By the way, you're probably going to be out in 2026 because that's when we will bring Antonelli up. But do you want a shot at a Mercedes? The thing is that right now, how attractive is that seat really? Do people stick out the development programs at their own teams? This is not the Mercedes of 2020 saying, come and have a shot at a top team. It's not the same situation. So I think that's just something to bear in mind. But at the same time, the size of the organisation and their development potential, if they do figure out a few things, is there, where you're just not going to have that with one of the smaller teams. So, but then again, if your contract is only going to be a year long, what's the point?
Yeah, if your contract's a year long, you still got the chance, don't you? But I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you. It'll be very interesting to see this play out. Silly season of the 2024-2025 season is going to be one for the ages, I believe, and then going into 2026 is lots of changes. I think we're going to see the grid very much rearranged for the year from what we're used to anyway, which is always exciting for fans. All right, let's take a quick break and we will be back to talk about Imola. And we're back. Welcome. How are you? Now, Imola, we're Italy for the first time this year. We've got Monza coming up. Now, I will say, last week I talked about the 3Ms on the F1 calendar being Melbourne, Monza and Monaco. Melbourne, Monaco and Montreal. And I left Monza out. I said there's a new fourth M and it's Miami. Now, I want to say that I wasn't so much talking about the on-track races and the M's. I was talking about the festival and the way the event is run and everything that happens around the track and the way the cities get involved and the other categories there. I definitely did not intend to leave Monza out because
we're replacing Monza with
track.
Miami. Chaos ensues. Yeah. You'll have people with pitchforks at your door, Campy.
And look, I get it. The Italians are very passionate, and I love their food. I love their culture. I don't want to rag on them because I'll have a few crazy ones show up on my door probably. So Anyway, I didn't
But
mean to
we
leave them
are-
out, but I was just...
Yeah.
But
Yep.
we're not at Monza. We are at Imola this weekend. So, first time there. Hey, this track's now become a staple of our F1 diet every year, I suppose, on the calendar, which is good to see. I preferred the Ferrano track, or was it Ferrano, the other Italian track that we raced at during COVID? And we had some big accident. Mugello.
Yeah,
Mugello.
Mugello.
We had some big accidents there, and I think F1 cars racing there is a bit more dangerous. This is a track of yesteryear. The drivers love it. That particular the last two left-handers going into the right-hander onto the straight. Just seeing these cars pass through that section it's completely skinny. I don't think you could fit two cars across it. I believe it's turn 14 and 15, and then onto that straight. There's some big passes going into that chicane as it sort of weaves around. You think about the Valtteri Bottas and George Russell accident there when he was in the Williams. Incredible track. Look, it's a track of yesteryear. I think the cars have outperformed it, but we still see some incredible racing. I'm very much looking forward to it. We have, we've got some changes to the Turn 9. Asphalt runoff has been removed. 11 and 12. The asphalt runoff has been reduced. Bit more jeopardy in there, to use a Voldemort word. And Turn 14 and 15, there's been a gravel trap added just to... keep it a bit more safe for the drivers. But Freya, what are you looking forward to this weekend? And is there any storylines going on the grid that you are looking forward to see play out this weekend?
Well, I think we're just all excited to be back here, right? Like you said, this is goes at the bottom of the food pyramid of one of the staples as far as the F1 diet goes. And you couldn't have a bigger juxtaposition between Miami as our last race and Imola this race. You think about the celebrity, you think about the humidity, the kind of the glitz of Miami, and then you come to Imola, which is our purpose-built circuit. It was constructed, or it started construction in 1950. Like, this is the definition of Formula One history.
Tradition,
And yeah, absolutely. And we weren't here last year because of the flooding in the region. They called off the race, which was obviously the right call. That was a really catastrophic flooding series for the region. We had thousands of people were displaced and people died, and it was awful for that region. So I think what is exciting is that this is a return of something really positive. If you imagine a part of the country that has gone through something really traumatic, and now you're bringing back something that is part of such a big part of their history and their tradition, and will be great for the region, is what I'm saying. I think they will be excited to have it back and to have that celebration of sport again, and really positive. Obviously, they will be remembering what did happen here last year. The thing which I'm looking forward to as well, on top of that, is the fact that it's our first European race of the calendar, which means two things. One, everyone's going to have upgrades. And two, flares will be back, Campy.
Flares. Yeah, it just seems to be the
bad
Europeans.
for our health,
right.
to remember, though.
Yeah, it's funny.
No, you go.
In Australia, we have the worst regulations on flares. You've got to register your flare serial number, and if you don't use it, you've got to give it back to the government. You've got to have them on your... It's ridiculous. Over there, it's like, this is our personal right and civil liberties and freedoms over here to light flares at sporting events. Now, I'm not sure I want to advocate. I am advocating for flares in Australia, so if you've got flares, but it'll set you back a hefty fine.
No. To be clear, Lakeside Drive does not encourage flare taking
I encourage flare taking. I'm a redneck.
Campy does not speak on behalf of Lakeside Drive.
I want to
This
see
is not an approved
chainsaws
message.
without the blade and loud revving with Australian flags like this. It'll be great.
No.
I too am very excited about this weekend. Look, last week we had the US national anthem. The Italian national anthem is one of the greats. We get to hear it twice this year. Very much looking forward to it. Do you think the US are passionate about their national anthem? Wait till you see these Italian flags and the Italians get arm in arm and sing with the passion in their eyes. It's good to see.
Absolutely.
And the interlude in the middle of the song is one of the greats.
It is fantastic.
on track. I'm looking forward to Danny Rick having a weekend of all weekends, picked up where he left off in Miami, and I dare say Q3 shot 5 for him this weekend. If he can get some space in that car, he's going to do excellent things, and all is right with the world again. I feel, well, with the F1 world anyway, and our Australian board in it. I'm
certainly not in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Just there.
All is not right in the world.
That's for sure. But no, and I think, look, I guess get so frustrated with DR's experience when it comes to kind of feeling like he gets momentum and then Stroll comes along and then this happens and then, you know, you get the momentum and then something else happens. You get something and more momentum and then nearly crashed into Oscar Piastri last year. And last time we were here at Imola was DR and Sainz on on first corner coming into each other. Well, that was Ricciardo's fault. And he went over to Sainz and apologised and took responsibility for that. But when I think back to that moment, I'm like, please just have a clean race so that we can see where you are at in the car, because it's so hard to understand where he's at in terms of progression and coming to grips with that car and its development, his new chassis. 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 You got it from Target. And it's, yeah, I want to see where he's at. I want him to have a clean weekend where he's able to maximize all the opportunities that he gets. We've seen snippets of it in terms of his P4 in the sprint race. It's there. We just need everybody else to not crash into him and he can not crash into anybody else. I want to see an outcome.
So I'll give us some predictions, right? What are we going for?
Before we get to predictions,
qualifying
actually.
And yeah.
Before we get to predictions, we'll do that in a second. Other things that happened here in 2022, which I was just thinking back to today, knowing that we were recording and was having a real laugh. Alonso gave us that incredible moment where he was like, how bad is the damage? And he had like a giant hole in the side of his car in the Alpine. It's something I think about on a regular basis. We also had Leclerc in the barrier on lap 53, which was an absolute disaster. And that's the thing. Yeah. My hope for Tifosi this weekend is that they do not have both Ferraris crash like they did last outing at Imola. So hopefully they do have a better weekend. And look, Yuki will have fond memories here too. He had great battles here with Vettel, K-Mag and Stroll. He finished in 7th last time out here. So yeah, just some bit of memory lane there. But God, Alonso, how bad is the damage? It's like, I can see your legs, actually. That bad.
That bad,
but,
mate.
Yes, okay, let's get to predictions. So my front row, I'm going to say Max and Leclerc. Like the Ferrari here, I think is going to have some real pace as long as Leclerc doesn't bin it. I think he could do really well. I think we're going to see Max return to the top, like as much as we've talked about this, but full credit to Lando for his win in Miami. Max was looks like he had okay, fine, then he can share it with the safety car. But Max also had floor damage after his expedition. Yep. So I think we'll see Max back on top again. Podium, I'm going to say Max, Norris. Like I do Norris. Yes, Norris. I was like, why are you saying that? And like, yeah, thank you. I wasn't going to say Norris, then I decided that I would. Because he's going to have a lot of momentum from last weekend and be running on a high. Leclerc in 3rd. I think he's going to start P2, finish in 3rd. 10th, I'm going to say Stroll. Last, I'm going to say Ocon. And my bold prediction is... oh, goodness me, I should have thought about this. I was too busy thinking about Alonso. Bold prediction is going to be Albon top 10 finish.
Good. Well, I'm very much looking to see how Oscar bounces back this week. He will have all of the upgrades from last week. Just remember, he didn't have all the upgrades. Lando got them all because he's the king. He's the second coming of McLaren's Jesus, whatever you want to call it. So... I'm looking to see how Oscar performs, so I think he'll bounce back. I want McLaren to be good this weekend. Well, I want Oscar to be good. I'm not I don't really care about Lando if I'm 100% honest, but yeah, I want Lando to be.
Since when have you been honest, Campy?
Oh, I'm always honest. Like, that's just fine. It's just the way we are. I want Oscar to do well, so I'm going to put Max. You can't leave Max off the top of anything because the last 25 races he's won 23 of them. So superstar. If you go back a bit more, he's won 30 odd, and anyway, irrelevant. So Max, and I'm going to go Oscar. Podium will be Max, Oscar, Charles. 10th will be Albono. Last will be Gasly, and bold prediction is both Mercedes to, under race conditions, not finish in the top 10.
Oh, well done. I need to get more creative with my bold predictions.
Yeah. Good.
That's a great call.
Yeah.
I have asked James for his predictions, but he hasn't sent them back to me yet. So that means he obviously comes last out of the three of us because got to be in it to win it, Campy. That's the rule.
All right, before we end up, because I've got some things to do today, and Freya's also got some things to do as well, but we have lives. That's all right. We're on a short time frame. Discord comment of the week. I've actually done it this week, and I've put some Bonnie spam up. So my Discord comment of the week is, it was a meme, and it was a meme of Fernando Alonso, and it was breaking F1 news. Fernando Alonso applies for British citizenship, so he no longer gets any penalties. I was like, come on, this is where the internet wins.
That's fantastic. Although I will say my favourite part of our audio, predominantly audio content here, is when Campy tries to describe a meme. It's just my favourite. But yes, you're not wrong. That was exceptional content. Yeah, this is where the best pockets of the internet exist. People were funny. My Discord comment of the week is once again a joint effort. We had one of our Discord and listeners, Discord members and listeners, who was at the Monaco Historic Grand Prix. By the way, that looked exceptional. I haven't even talked about that. That looked amazing. And also just so fitting. Like, those cars are what belong on that track. It just everything looked right. So we're talking about things being right in the world. Things are right over in Monaco once again. But Kate was over there and she was posting some photos from the Monaco Historic Grand Prix. And James Baldwin said, "More reporting, please. Give us more content." To which Steamroller said, "Yeah, James is desperate to know what's happening in the paddock."
I've never lived that one down.
Steamroller, exceptional work. Love it. Kate, thank you for the setup.
Yeah, good. Let's get some more layups to just rag on James on the Discord. That'll be good.
Exactly. It's our favourite activity.
Excellent. Well, we are very much looking forward to the Imola Grand Prix this weekend. Join along, listen to James on his many podcasts that he will do over the weekend, and we'll see you back bright and early Monday morning, Australian time, post-race, to discuss everything that happens. Check us out on YouTube. TikTok, we've got it. I'm not sure we do. I have Twitter. If you can find me, I'll probably unfollow you. What else have we got? YouTube's been going really well. Oh, we're on Instagram as well. Please interact on the Discord. I will definitely be there. Freya is a great contributor as well. It's a really great community.
You guys are what make it, honestly. We can just sit back and have a great time there. Its members are just incredible. It's just an amazing community, and it's so funny.
It is. So, yeah, have a great weekend, and we'll see you on the other side of the Imola GP.